What if I told you that the story you tell yourself about who you are is all wrong? That might sound bold, but stick with me. Right now, there's a good chance you're underestimating yourself, holding on to fear, or seeing your life through a distorted lens. We all do this at times, but what if you could change the way you see yourself, and in doing so, change your entire life? This isn't some magic trick or cliched self-help mantra. We're tapping into 2,000-year-old wisdom from Stoic philosophers that can transform your perspective in a very real way. By the end of this journey, you might not recognize the person you were 15 minutes ago. You'll have learned how to turn obstacles into opportunities, how to break free from the mental chains holding you back, and how to become the master of your own life. Sound interesting? Let's dive in. We're going to explore some powerful lessons from Stoicism, so get comfortable and let's begin changing the way you see yourself. Chapter 1. The Lens of Perception. Your mindset shapes your reality. Let's start with a simple truth. It's not what happens to you, but how you see it that matters. Imagine two people stuck in the same traffic jam. One is pounding the steering wheel, cursing the universe for this horrible day. The other is calmly humming along to music, using the extra time to think or relax. Same situation, two completely different experiences. What's the difference? It's the lens of perception. Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. Epictetus, one of the great Stoics, said it plain and clear: people are not disturbed by things but by the views they take of them. In other words, events don't upset us. Our opinions about those events do. The traffic jam isn't making person one angry. His belief that this is ruining my day is what triggers the anger. Person two sees the traffic as a minor inconvenience or even a chance to pause, so she's unfazed. Same road, different road maps in the mind. Now think about your own life. How many times have you labeled a day as bad because of one small setback? Maybe you woke up late and decided, today is ruined. Every little thing after that felt like proof the world was against you. But was it really? Or did your mindset tint everything grey after that rough morning? The lens you choose to look through can turn a challenge into a catastrophe or into a learning experience. So, how do we apply this in our everyday life? Let's get practical. Catch your judgments. The next time something bad happens, your boss criticizes you or a project falls through, pause. Notice the story you're telling yourself. I'm never going to succeed. Nothing ever goes right for me, etc. Realize that this is just one interpretation, not an ultimate truth. Reframe the situation. Ask, is there another way to look at this? Maybe that criticism is an opportunity to improve your work. The spilled coffee on your shirt could become a funny story later, and a reminder to slow down. The lost project might free you up for a better one. This isn't about blind optimism. It's about seeing reality clearly, without the extra drama our minds add. Use a Stoic trick. When something goes wrong, tell yourself what Marcus Aurelius might. It's not a misfortune, but an opportunity to practice virtue. In other words, treat setbacks as chances to practice patience, resilience, or understanding. This shifts your focus from feeling like a victim to acting like a hero in your own story. When you start changing the lens of perception, an amazing thing happens. The world itself starts to change in front of you, not because some outside magic switch was flipped, but because you flipped an inside switch. You realize you have a choice in how to view anything. Traffic jam? Maybe it's a chance to listen to a good podcast. Job loss? Painful, yes. But maybe it's the beginning of a new career or personal growth. Harsh criticism? Hard to hear, but perhaps a catalyst to up your game. This doesn't mean you must be happy about everything bad. We're all human, and we'll feel negative emotions. Stoicism isn't about faking happiness. It's about recognizing that you have the power to interpret events, to decide what story to tell yourself, and the story you choose can either shackle you or set you free. By honing this skill of perspective, you're already taking the first step to change how you see yourself. Because guess what? If you can change how you interpret the world, you can change how you interpret your own abilities and worth too. You realize that failure doesn't label you a failure. It's just something that happened, a lesson learned. You see that challenges aren't personal curses. They're universal experiences that can forge resilience. The lens of perception is your superpower. Polish that lens, and life becomes clearer and more manageable. Now that we've adjusted our mindset's lens, let's move on to the next chapter, where we take that new perspective and aim it at our dreams. Chapter 2. Turning dreams into reality, overcoming self-doubt and taking action. All right, so you've got a shiny new perspective. You're trying to see challenges as opportunities and setbacks as lessons. Now you might be asking, what do I do with this new mindset? The answer, take action. It's time to go after those dreams and goals you've been putting off. And to do that, we need to tackle a big obstacle, self-doubt. Let's be real, we all have dreams. Some are big, loud, change-the-world dreams. Others are quieter, personal goals like getting in shape, starting a business, writing a book, or simply being happier. But between dreaming and doing, there's often a chasm filled with excuses and fears. How many times have you caught yourself thinking, I'm not good enough to do that? I'll start when I have more experience or money or time. What if I try and I fail miserably? If any of that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Self-doubt is a universal human experience. Even the great Stoics had to deal with it. The difference is, they didn't let it stop them. Stoicism is a very action-oriented philosophy. It's not about sitting around pondering all day. It's about living your values in the real world. Here's a quick story. In ancient Greece, a merchant named Zeno lost everything in a shipwreck. His entire cargo sank. One day, he's a successful trader. The next, he's washed up with nothing. Most people would have given up, convinced life was over. And yes, Zeno was devastated at first. But he decided to make that disaster the start of something new. He wandered into a bookshop in Athens and started reading about philosophy. The ideas lit a fire in him. He later said, "Now that I've suffered shipwreck, I'm on a good journey." Losing everything pushed him to a path he might never have found otherwise. Zeno went on to found the Stoic school of philosophy. His dream of becoming a philosopher was born from total ruin. The point is, sometimes our dreams are born out of our setbacks, and taking action in the face of self-doubt can lead to incredible outcomes. Zeno could have thought, who am I to teach philosophy? I'm just a failed merchant. But instead, he took action in a new direction when life gave him an opening. Now you might be thinking, that's great for Zeno, but I'm not starting a whole new philosophy here. I just want to achieve my goals. Absolutely. And you can. The Stoic approach to self-doubt is brutally simple. Just start and focus on what you can control. Stop overthinking how it's all going to play out. Often, the biggest thing to conquer is our own hesitation in taking that first step. Let's break it down. Start before you feel ready. You might never feel 100% ready. If you wait for the perfect moment or perfect confidence, you could wait forever. We only ever have control over the present action. So ask yourself, what tiny step can I take right now? Want to write a book? Write 1 paragraph today. Want to get fit? Take a 10-minute walk today. It sounds almost too simple, but that's how any journey begins. One small step. Embrace the possibility of failure and do it anyway. If you start something new, guess what? You might fail or stumble. The Stoics would say, okay, and if that happens, will it be the end of you? No, you'll learn something. So rather than being paralyzed by what-ifs, be driven by even if. Even if it doesn't work out, you'll grow from the experience. Not trying at all is the only guaranteed failure. Ignore the naysayers, including your inner critic. Epictetus taught that we should worry more about our own character and less about reputation. Why? Because when you chase a dream, there will always be people and inner voices saying you're crazy or not good enough. A Stoic trains to have a thick skin against those doubts. Remember Epictetus's advice. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, Don't let the fear of looking silly or the fear of judgment stop you from doing what matters to you. If you apply these ideas, something magic happens. Action builds confidence. You gain confidence not from motivational quotes, but from evidence that you can actually do it. Every small win chips away at your doubt. Wrote a page today? Hey, you're a writer. Jogged around the block? You're getting in shape. Each action, however small, is a vote for the new story you're telling about yourself. And here's a Stoic twist. Whether or not you fully reach the dream, you've already won, because you've grown as a person. The goal was never just the external achievement. It was about becoming someone who could achieve it. That's a victory nobody can take from you. So think of one dream or goal you have that you've been putting off. Got it in mind? Now decide on a tiny next step. As soon as this video is over, or pause it if you need to, go and do that step. Send that email, open a blank document and jot down ideas, do 10 push-ups, whatever it is. Start turning the dream into reality, one small action at a time. With this action-oriented mindset, you will face challenges, guaranteed. Not every step will be easy or fun. Some will downright hurt. And that's where our next lesson comes in. When pain and hardship strike, how do you not only endure them, but turn them to your advantage? Let's find out. Chapter 3. Transforming pain into power, using hardships as fuel for growth. Life can be tough, there's no escaping that. We all encounter pain, loss, and adversity. But here's something you might not hear often. Your pain could become your biggest strength, if you let it. This idea is at the heart of Stoicism, that we can take the obstacles life throws at us and turn them upside down. Remember our Stoic friend Marcus Aurelius? He faced huge hardships, wars, plagues, betrayal, basically a greatest hits list of terrible situations. And yet, during one of Rome's darkest times, Marcus wrote in his journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In modern terms, the obstacle becomes the way. It's a poetic way of saying that the challenge in front of you can become the path forward. Let's put this into a modern story. Picture a woman who starts a small business, pouring her heart and savings into it. For a year it goes well. Her dream is coming true. Then an economic downturn hits. Clients cancel, bills pile up, and eventually she has to close her beloved business. She's devastated. It feels like the universe just pulled the rug out from under her. At first, she thinks, "I'm a failure. Why is this happening to me?" But after the initial grief, she remembers the Stoic idea that every setback carries a seed of opportunity. She asks herself, "How is this happening for me?" With the business, she learned more in 1 year than in a decade at a regular job: accounting, marketing, leadership, problem solving under pressure. Sure, the business ended, but now she has a whole toolkit she never had before. Instead of labeling herself a failure, she decides to see herself as someone in training. She reaches out and lands a job helping other small businesses navigate tough times. Who better to do that than someone who just went through it? A couple of years later, she uses all her hard-earned knowledge to start a new venture, this time with even more savvy. In hindsight, she realizes losing that first business was the best thing that happened to her growth. The obstacle became the way forward. Your story might be different. Maybe your pain is a bad breakup, a health crisis, losing someone you love, or feeling completely lost in life. Stoicism doesn't trivialize that pain. It is real, and it does hurt. What Stoicism offers is a way to use that pain rather than be used up by it. How? Here are some Stoic strategies for transforming pain into power. Ask the right question. When something bad happens, it's normal to ask, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic twist is to ask, "How might this be happening for me?" This is tough in the moment, but incredibly powerful. Look for what you can learn from the hardship. Did it reveal a weakness you can work on? Did it force you to develop a strength you didn't know you had? Every experience, however painful, carries a lesson. Find it, and you've turned the pain into fuel. Embrace the struggle. Stoics often compared life to a boxing match or a wrestling bout. You don't become a great fighter by only sparring with weak opponents. You get strong by facing tougher challenges. Epictetus reminded his students, difficulties are things that show a person who they are. Hard times are like a mirror. They show you what you're made of. Instead of running from that revelation, embrace it. Okay, this is testing me. Let's see what I've got or where I need to build up strength. Remember past victories. Think back to a time you thought, I can't get through this, but you did. We all have those moments. Maybe it was surviving a rough year in school or getting over a heartbreak or overcoming an injury. Remind yourself of those victories. You did that, so you can do this. It's easy to forget how resilient we've been in the past when new pain shows up. Keep an evidence file in your mind of the hardships you've overcome. It's proof of your resilience. One extreme real-life example of finding power in pain comes from someone who wasn't a Stoic philosopher, but certainly lived out the principle. Viktor Frankl, a psychotherapist who survived horrific concentration camps in World War II. In the midst of unimaginable suffering, Frankl realized that even when everything is taken away, we still have one freedom: to choose our attitude. He found meaning in helping fellow prisoners find hope. As he later wrote, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That sounds like pure Stoicism, doesn't it? He couldn't escape his pain, but he used it to find meaning, to endure, and later to inspire millions through his book. Now, thankfully, most of us will never face something as dire as Frankl did, but we can use the same mindset for the struggles we do face. Didn't get the job you wanted? Use the setback to sharpen your skills or explore a new direction. Going through heartbreak? Use that pain to learn more about yourself, to develop empathy, or to channel into creative work. Great art often comes from great suffering. Battling illness? Perhaps it can teach patience, appreciation for small joys, or reveal a strength you didn't know you had. It won't be easy. Let's not sugarcoat it. In the moment when you're hurting, it's hard to see the silver lining. Stoicism isn't about loving the pain. It's about trusting that, given time and effort, you can use even the worst experiences as stepping stones. By adopting this approach, something interesting happens. You start to fear hardship less. You won't seek it out. Pain is pain, after all. But you'll know that if it comes, it can't break you. You'll be like a blacksmith who uses fire to harden steel. The flames that could have destroyed you end up strengthening you. Now that we've talked about dealing with hardships, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture of our lives. What are we really aiming for? What truly matters to us? It's time to cut out the noise and focus on what counts. Chapter 4. Focusing on what truly matters, cutting out distractions and living with purpose. Have you ever been busy all day, yet at night thought, did I actually do anything important? It's a disorienting feeling, being exhausted from juggling tasks, answering messages, keeping up with everything, yet realizing you're no closer to what you truly want. In the age of smartphones and endless notifications, distraction is the new normal. But Stoicism offers a remedy: clarity of purpose. The Stoics were big on distinguishing between what is important and what is trivial. They had a talent for zooming out to see the big picture. Seneca, a famous Stoic advisor to an emperor, warned about this 2,000 years ago. He observed that people are always complaining that life is short, and yet we waste a lot of it. Even back then, long before TikTok and Twitter, people wasted time on unimportant things. So, how do we figure out what truly matters? And once we do, how do we stick to it without getting derailed by every shiny thing along the way? First, get clear on your values and priorities. Think of your life as a book. What do you want the main chapters to be about? Family, creativity, helping others, learning, adventure. There's no wrong answer, but if you don't decide, the world will decide for you, and the world is perfectly happy to fill your time with meaningless fluff. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves of the shortness of life, not to be morbid, but to focus their attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. In other words, Life is too short to waste on things that don't matter to you. Try this. Imagine yourself far in the future, at a very old age, looking back on your life, the classic rocking chair test. What do you think you'll value the most in hindsight? Chances are it's things like wishing you'd spent more time with the people you love, or being glad you pursued what truly mattered to you. Use that perspective today to guide what you do. On a daily level, how do we cut out distractions and keep our eyes on the prize? Some practical tips. Limit the noise. In our world, that might mean setting specific times for email or social media instead of checking them every 5 minutes. Maybe it means turning off non-essential notifications that constantly steal your focus. The Stoics didn't have iPhones, but they did value stillness and focus. If Seneca lived now, he might say every notification is like someone tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Pay attention to me," all day long. You can't focus on what matters if you're constantly reacting to what doesn't. Say no to say yes. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're effectively saying no to something important because your time and energy are limited. It's hard, but practice the art of the polite no. If your plate is full and someone invites you to an event that you're not excited about, it's okay to decline. Protect your time for what matters. Stoics prioritize the quality of their actions over the quantity of their actions. Rituals of reflection. One reason we lose focus is that we forget why we're doing what we do. A Stoic practice is to take a little time each morning or night to reflect on your day and your intentions. You might jot in a journal or just take a quiet walk and think, what is my main focus right now? Am I spending time on it today? Marcus Aurelius did this daily in his meditations, essentially a journal to reinforce his principles and keep himself on track. Regular reflection keeps your purpose front and center. Let me share a modern example of refocusing. A successful lawyer I heard about was making great money and had all the outward signs of success, but he felt empty, like his life was all paperwork and no meaning. Then he had a minor health scare, a wake-up call. Lying in the hospital, he didn't think about his expensive car or how many emails he'd answered. He thought about how he'd always wanted to teach art, how he missed spending time with his kids. So he made a change. He scaled back at the firm, started teaching a weekend art class for kids, and made sure to be home for dinner with his family most nights. He still practices law, but just enough to pay the bills. The rest of his time goes to what truly matters to him, art and family. He told a friend he's never been happier or more fulfilled. You don't need a health scare or a drastic life change to refocus on what matters. You can start smaller. Maybe dedicate an hour on Sunday to that hobby you love, but have been too busy for. Schedule regular time with someone who matters to you. Prioritize reading that book or taking that course that will help you in your true passion, instead of scrolling through endless news feeds. The key is intention. Stoicism is about intentional living. It's saying, I choose where my attention goes, because my attention is my life. When you live with that attitude, something cool happens. You get more done of what matters and you care less about the trivial stuff. You won't fret about missing the latest TV show if you're busy building your dream or cherishing time with loved ones. Remember, your time is your most precious resource. Guard it for the things that count. As Marcus would remind himself, our days are numbered. Use them wisely. Now that you're focusing on what truly matters, the next step is to stick with it for the long haul. Big goals and worthy pursuits require something special, discipline and perseverance. Let's talk about how to cultivate those. Chapter 5. Mastering Discipline and Perseverance. Why consistency beats motivation. We've all been there. You watch an inspiring video, maybe even this one, or read a motivational quote and feel super fired up to change your life. You plan an ambitious new routine. Tomorrow you'll wake up at 5 a.m., meditate, run 5 miles, write a journal entry, conquer the world before breakfast. Day 1 goes great. Day 2, not so much. By day 5, the snooze button has defeated you. The running shoes are collecting dust and the grand plan is out the window. What happened? Motivation fizzled out. Here's a hard truth. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Discipline, on the other hand, is like a sturdy foundation. It keeps you going through any weather. The Stoics knew this well. They trained themselves with habits and routines so they would do what needed to be done whether they felt like it or not. There's a famous Stoic practice called premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evils, where they'd imagine challenges ahead of time so they wouldn't be surprised by them. Think of it as mental rehearsal for tough times. We can do a version of that with our goals. Assume that some days you won't feel motivated. Then ask, what's my plan for those days? How will I stick to my task even when I don't feel like it? Consider something as simple as getting in shape. Lots of people start a workout plan on a wave of motivation, New Year's resolution, anyone? And by February, many have quit. It's not because their goal wasn't worthwhile, it's because motivation alone wasn't enough. The ones who stick with it are those who turn workouts into a routine, a non-negotiable part of their day. Let's illustrate with a mini story. Imagine someone, we'll call him Carlos, who decides to train for a marathon. In the beginning, Carlos is pumped. He's running every day, fueled by enthusiasm. But a couple of weeks in, that initial excitement fades. One cold, rainy morning, he'd rather stay in bed. If Carlos relies only on motivation, that one missed run could snowball into quitting the whole plan. But suppose Carlos anticipated this dip. He set a rule that he'll run at least 4 days a week, no matter what. Even if it's raining, even if he's tired, he'll at least jog around the block. He also lays out his gear the night before and tells a friend to join him, so he has accountability. Sure enough, on that cold morning, he doesn't feel like it, but he goes anyway, even if just for a short, slow run. By keeping the streak alive, he maintains the habit. Months later, when marathon day arrives, he's at the starting line not because he was motivated each day, but because he was disciplined each day. Stoicism is full of encouragement to build good habits. Epictetus advised his students to practice their principles every single day, like an athlete training their body. Seneca said, "Putting things off is the biggest waste of life." In other words, do what you need to do now, not later. And Marcus Aurelius, he famously pep-talked himself each morning. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being, and what do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? Even the Emperor of Rome struggled with the snooze button, but he reminded himself of his duty and purpose and rolled off his royal cot to do the work. How do you apply this in your life? Some practical pointers. Build a routine. Decide when and where you will do the important things and stick to that plan. If you want to write a book, maybe commit. Every morning at 7 a.m., I'll write for 30 minutes. No excuses. By scheduling it, you make it a normal part of your day. Start small and build up. Don't set yourself up for failure with an unrealistic plan right away. Consistency is king. It's better to walk 10 minutes every day and actually do it than to vow to run 5 miles and quit after a week. You can always ramp up once the habit is solid. Automate good choices. Use your environment to help your discipline. If you want to avoid late-night junk food, don't keep cookies in the house. If you want to focus on studying, put your phone in another room. Make it easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing, so you're not fighting temptation every moment. Forgive and recommit. Even with discipline, you'll slip up. Maybe you miss a day or break your streak. Don't beat yourself up, but also, don't let a lapse turn into a collapse. Acknowledge the slip, figure out what went wrong, and get back on track. 1 missed day is an outlier, 5 missed days is a new pattern. So catch yourself quickly and keep going. Discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. In the early stages, pushing yourself to stick to something can feel very hard, but over time it becomes second nature. You actually start to feel off when you don't do your usual routine. That's when you know you've internalized it. By building discipline, you also build quiet confidence. You begin to trust yourself more because you have a track record. When you say you'll do something, you do it. That trust is a powerful thing. It gives you a sense of stability and self-respect. And that inner strength will come in handy for our next chapter, where we take on something that often hides in the shadows of our mind, our limiting beliefs. Chapter 6. Breaking free from limiting beliefs, overcoming mental barriers. By now you've been working on your mindset, your actions, your resilience, your focus, and your discipline. You're making serious moves to change how you see yourself and what you're capable of. But there's often a sneaky thing that can still hold us back, the beliefs we hold about our own limits. We all carry stories about ourselves. I'm terrible at math. I'm shy. I'm not creative. I can't start over at my age, and so on. Some of these stories started in childhood, others after a bad experience, others because someone else told us and we believed it. These are what psychologists call limiting beliefs, unexamined ideas that we treat as truths about our abilities or qualities. Here's a freeing thought. What if many of those beliefs are wrong, or at least not the whole truth? Stoicism gives us tools to challenge these beliefs, because the Stoics were all about using reason and evidence over unchecked assumptions. Think about Epictetus. He was born a slave and had a physically crippled leg. Talk about a situation that could breed limiting beliefs, being literally owned by someone, considered property, and having a disability. It would have been easy for him to think, I'm powerless, I'm broken, I can't do anything great. Yet Epictetus believed he had an inner freedom that no one could touch. He studied philosophy whenever he could. Eventually he was freed, and he became one of the most influential teachers of his time. If he had accepted the limits that society tried to put on him, we'd never know his name today. Now, most of us don't face something that extreme, thankfully, but we all face our own invisible chains, the I can't or I'm not statements that quietly dictate what we do or don't even try to do. A classic Stoic exercise is to examine your beliefs logically. Write down one negative belief you have about yourself and examine it. Ask, is this really true? What's the evidence? Often you'll find the evidence is pretty flimsy or outdated. Maybe you believe, I'm just bad at learning languages. Okay, but what's your proof? Struggling in high school French class doesn't mean you can't learn Spanish now using methods that work for you. Replace that thought with a more realistic one. It could be as simple as adding yet to the end of it. I'm not good at public speaking yet. That one little word keeps the door open for improvement. Or rewrite the belief, I haven't been great at this so far, but with practice, I can get better. Test it. Do something small that challenges that limiting belief. Afraid you're too old to run? Sign up for a local 5K charity walk, run, and train for it. Think, I'm not creative? Try a short daily doodle or write a half page of a story each day for a week, something that proves to yourself that growth is possible. Each time you push against a limit, you gather evidence that it's not as solid as you thought. Another powerful example, for decades people believed it was physically impossible for a human to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Doctors and scientists said the human body just couldn't do it. That was a collective limiting belief. Then in 1954, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. The crazy part? Within just a couple of years, many other runners did it too. Nothing changed in human biology in those years. What changed was the belief about the limits. The barrier was broken in the mind, and the body followed. Remember, Stoicism teaches that we often are our own worst enemies when we let negative thoughts run unchecked. But it also teaches that we are our own liberators because we control our thoughts. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Sometimes the wall is only in your mind. So challenge your beliefs. Don't automatically accept that voice that says I can't. Put it on trial, demand evidence, and then go gather counter-evidence by taking action. Every limiting belief you crack open lets a bit more light into your life. You start seeing possibilities where before you saw dead ends. You realize you've been walking around in a self-built prison and that you hold the key. Once you break free from some limiting beliefs, you'll notice something exciting. You're no longer living strictly by other people's rules or past narratives. You're free to define your life on your terms. And that sets us up perfectly for the next chapter, where we examine what success really means once you're no longer boxed in by false beliefs. Chapter 7. Redefining Success. True Fulfillment Beyond External Achievements. Take a moment and ask yourself, what does success mean to me? Is it having a certain job title, a certain amount of money, a big house, a fancy car, a wall full of awards? Or is it something more internal, like being happy, having freedom, or making a difference? There's no one right answer, but it's important to really think about it, because society will eagerly tell you its definition of success if you don't have your own. We live in a world that often measures success in trophies and tokens, salary, status, followers, fame. And hey, those things can be nice. But how many times have we seen someone who has it all externally still feel miserable or empty? Perhaps you've even experienced this on a smaller scale, achieving a goal and then thinking, is this it? Why don't I feel content? Stoicism flips the script on success. The Stoics weren't against wealth or achievement. They just knew those alone don't bring fulfillment. They believed true success is living with virtue, being a good person, and living in agreement with your values and nature. It's about inner excellence rather than external validation. Picture two individuals. One has a high-powered career, lots of money, and social prestige, but they're stressed out and feel no sense of purpose. The other works a modest job, isn't famous or rich, but finds joy and meaning in everyday efforts. They take care of their family, they're honest, they do their best at work, and they sleep well at night. By Stoic standards, the second person is more successful in life than the first. Why? Because success to a Stoic is measured by the quality of your soul and the peace in your heart, not the size of your bank account. Marcus Aurelius, arguably one of the most successful individuals in history as the Emperor of Rome, often reminded himself not to be seduced by luxury or praise. In his diary he wrote, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." He also reminded himself that you could be happy with nothing more than bread and water if you cultivate the right attitude. This from a man who literally had all the wealth and power in the world. Marcus knew that those externals were not what made him truly successful or happy. So, how can we redefine success for ourselves in a practical way? Here are a couple of ideas. Define success on your terms. Take a moment to identify your core values, the principles or pursuits that matter most to you. Maybe it's creativity or helping others, or freedom or learning or faith or family. Now think of success as living in alignment with those values. Set goals that reflect them. For instance, if one of your core values is helping others, then a successful life must include service in some form, regardless of your job title. If freedom is a value, perhaps your measure of success is having control over your time, even if it means making less money. In short, success is living life your way, not necessarily the way others expect. Practice gratitude. This might seem unrelated to success, but it's deeply connected. If you're always chasing the next thing, you'll never feel successful, because there's always another mountain beyond the one you just climbed. Take time regularly to appreciate what you have and what you've accomplished so far. Celebrate small wins. Be thankful for the people, experiences, and even the challenges that have made you who you are. Gratitude turns what you have into enough, or even into more than enough. It shifts your focus from lack to abundance, which is key for feeling fulfilled. Now, a subtle but important point. Redefining success doesn't mean you give up on external achievements. It often means you achieve them as a byproduct of pursuing what truly matters. When you focus on being excellent in character and doing work that aligns with your values, you tend to do that work really well. And external success, promotions, recognition, money can follow. But the beautiful thing is, even if those external markers don't all come, you still feel fulfilled because your life is rich with meaning and integrity. Think of someone like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. He wasn't a billionaire or a typical power player, but by his own values of kindness and education, he was wildly successful. and left a legacy that's arguably more valuable than any Forbes list career. On the flip side, we can all think of public figures who hit the heights of fame or fortune and ended up unhappy or in trouble because inside, they didn't have a solid foundation. So ask yourself, are you climbing a ladder that's leaning against the right wall? If not, it's never too late to adjust. True success is often quiet and personal. It might be known only to you. It's the satisfaction of knowing at the end of the day that you lived true to yourself and did your best. Imagine reaching the end of your life and being able to say, I lived according to my values. I cared for those I love. I tried to leave the world a little better than I found it. That, my friend, is success. And it doesn't require anyone else's approval or any certificate on the wall, just your own honest judgment. With this new definition of success in mind, you free yourself from the rat race of constantly seeking more and more. You can enjoy external success when it comes, without letting it define you. And you can find fulfillment even in simple, humble circumstances. Now, with all these pieces, shifting your perspective, taking action, growing from pain, focusing on what matters, building discipline, shattering limiting beliefs, and defining success on your terms. How do we put it all together? It comes down to one final lesson: conquering yourself to conquer the world. Chapter 8. Conquering yourself to conquer the world. The ultimate lesson in self-mastery. We've come a long way on this journey. Take a second to appreciate that. You're investing time to reshape how you see yourself, and that's already a sign of growth. Now let's talk about what all these Stoic lessons build up to: self-mastery. There's an old proverb that goes, "Better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles. Then the victory is yours. It cannot be taken from you." The Stoics lived by this idea. The hardest battles are within, against our own ego, fears, impulses, and doubts. If you can win those inner battles, you'll find the outer ones much easier. Self-mastery doesn't mean being a stern drill sergeant to yourself or never having fun. It means having a kind of inner control and understanding. It's being able to manage your emotions instead of being ruled by them, to stick to your principles, to make yourself do what's right, even when it's hard, and refrain from what's wrong, even when it's tempting. It's also about knowing yourself deeply, your strengths, weaknesses, triggers, and habits, so you can navigate life skillfully. Think about it. Changing your perception, Chapter 1, was about mastering your interpretation of events. Taking action despite fear, Chapter 2, was about mastering your hesitation. Turning pain into power, Chapter 3, was mastering how you react to adversity. Focusing on what matters, Chapter 4, is mastering your attention. Discipline, Chapter 5, is mastering your daily actions. Breaking limiting beliefs, Chapter 6, is mastering your mind's narrative. Redefining success, Chapter 7, is mastering your values and not letting society dictate your worth. In every chapter, the common thread has been you training and shaping the person in the mirror. Conquering yourself is the ultimate victory. When you achieve self-mastery, you move through the world with a calm confidence. Challenges come and you handle them because you've handled yourself. You become, in a sense, invincible. Not that bad things never happen to you, but that when they do, they don't break you or throw you off course for long. To use a metaphor, when you conquer yourself, you become the captain of your life. You might not control the seas, but you control your ship and how you sail. Storms will still happen, winds will change, but you'll navigate instead of drifting. And here's the kicker. The world tends to yield to a person who is master of themselves. When you have self-mastery, people trust you more, opportunities find you, and you often end up achieving external wins almost as a side effect. Why? Because so many people are tossed around by impulses or trapped by fear. If you aren't, you stand out. You become the calm in the chaos, the one who keeps their head on straight, and that often leads to leadership and success in the outer world. Epictetus put it simply, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To the Stoics, freedom didn't mean doing whatever you feel like. It meant not being a slave to your own desires and fears. If you're a slave to those, then even if you're powerful in society, you're not truly free. But if you've conquered those internal masters, then even if your external situation is limited, you have a kind of freedom and power that can't be taken away. Now, self-mastery is a lifelong journey. I don't want to give the impression that one day you finish and you're done. Even Marcus Aurelius, as wise as he was, struggled daily to live up to his own ideals. That's why he journaled, to keep himself on track. The point is to be on the path, making progress. And you certainly have the tools now to continue on that path. At this point, you have to realize something exciting. The power to change your life was in you all along. The Stoics just helped you see it. By conquering yourself, your mind, your attitudes, your reactions, you've effectively conquered the hardest thing in life. The rest, as Marcus would say, just is what it is. You can't control everything that happens, but you can control who you are in the face of it all. And that is more than enough to conquer whatever challenges come from the outside. So ask yourself, after everything you've heard in these chapters, what will you do next to start conquering yourself? It could be as small as making your bed tomorrow with real care, or as big as finally signing up for that class or making that phone call you've been dreading. Whatever it is, do it with intention. That's you, taking the reins. We've covered a lot of ground, from perception all the way to self-mastery. Now it's time for the final part of this video, the part where you take action on what you've learned and continue your Stoic journey beyond this video. Take a deep breath. You've just taken in a lot of ideas, stories, and tips. The key now is choose one or two things from this entire script that resonated with you the most and put them into practice. Knowledge alone won't change your life. Action will. So as soon as this video ends, decide on one small action you'll do to apply something you learned. Maybe it's reframing one negative thought that's been bothering you, or finally taking that first step toward a goal, or even just standing taller and reminding yourself that you've got what it takes. Whatever it is, commit to it. If you found value in this journey and want to continue growing, consider joining our Stoic community by hitting the subscribe button. This channel is all about helping each other become stronger, wiser, and happier, using ancient wisdom in modern life. By subscribing, you won't miss future videos that can keep you motivated and on track. Plus, you'll be supporting content that aims to uplift and empower, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. And hey, let's turn the comments into a discussion of growth. Leave a comment about which lesson resonated with you or an experience you've had with these ideas. Did the perception shift help you recently? Have you turned a setback into strength or broken a limiting belief? Share it. Your story might inspire someone else, and I do read the comments because your journeys inspire me right back. Thank you so much for watching until the end. That already shows you have the dedication to improve yourself. Remember, the power to change the way you see yourself is in your hands. The ancient Stoics provided the wisdom. Now it's up to you to use it. Until next time, stay strong, stay stoic, and keep conquering that inner world. You've got this. Now go out there and live a life worthy of the greatness inside you. See you in the next video.